Daron Bartlett joining us right now for updates on all that has been happening. Good to see you, Daron.
Good to see you too, guys. I was just enjoying the conversation on the ICC.
You may want to chip in your thoughts on, all that drama before, of course, we wrap up. But let's first of all start with the Eastern Continent. We'll get back to this later. As M23 rebels have been withdrawing, of course, slowly from occupied villages and towns in the Eastern DRC, a commander of the Eastern African Regional Force said he is pleased with the positive progress in the withdrawal process. Tell us, a little bit about, all that is going on. What is the current status of the withdrawal of the M23 rebels from the Eastern DRC, and how has the East Africa Community Regional Force contributed in any way to this progress?
Now, the M23, I know that there have been killings in the last week, but after a thorough investigation by the regional force, they believe that those killings were not committed by the M23. They were committed by the other militias who happen to occupy different places here and there. But the M23 has been seen to have withdrawn from strategic places that they've been holding for quite some time. Since the deployment of the East African Regional Force, we've seen him leave places like Bunagana and also some places that are just near to Goma, a place that has been under threat before. Actually, M23 at some point in 2012 took over Goma before, and later on withdrew, of course, that led them to completely disband and then before they reassembled again. So they have been withdrawing from key strategic places, and if you look at the deployment of the regional forces after they sat down and agreed, Medanyagwa also informed the press and the public that the regional forces divided themselves and also occupied those places that the M23 have previously been occupying. So, for example, Uganda has been strategic in Bunagana. South Sudan has also been in Bunagana, and the armies of Angola have been in the southern part of the eastern, part of Congo, where they believe that the Tutsi have been assembling for quite some time. So that sounds like good progress. However, there is a concern from the public that they believe that they are not withdrawing, but they are just re-strategizing, getting into populations, and they're just not wearing uniform. So it's difficult to tell whether they're the M23 or the other militias. So they believe it's just a tactical move by the M23. That is according to the public, the people of Congo, because they think we've been down this road before, where they said they're withdrawn and then they later on mushroom from where you cannot tell. So you would want to give credit to the East African forces because they have not launched what they would call like a firefight, a head-on clash with the M23. They have been talking to them at different diplomatic levels, despite the president of Congo, Felix, not wanting dialogue with the M23. What he wants them out. But the East African forces and also the diplomatic powers have been having conversations with the M23 to see that there's no bloodshed in Congo. So they have really tried to see that M23 does not progress further than they have already occupied.
All right. Daron, thanks for breaking that down to us, taking a look at the M23 rebels and, of course, the current situation. But there seems to be one of the biggest stories there in East Africa that has got everyone talking. Everyone is, talking about it up until now. Now, let's talk about Ezekiel Odero in the midst of all this numbers and death tolls that we've seen in churches, especially with the recent one. Now, what has led to the arrest of a certain Ezekiel Odero, the head of the New Life Prayer Center and Church in Kenya? And what allegations have been made against him and his church? Now, throughout this week, we've seen the numbers of bodies. It's just too much. It's horrifying. It's scary. And now we have Ezekiel Odero, who many figures have pointed to him being in the mix. You want to break it down for us quickly?
Now, Odero's church, the New Life Church, when police was making a search, police was forced into investigations because of the many people who died under another cult leader, Mackenzie, about 100 people dead and mass graves still being found. So there's some other graves that were found near Odero's church, the New Life Church, and police moved in swiftly, arrested him, and they took him to Mombasa, the regional police, to question him about some of those graves that they found there. But it has not. He has not yet made a public statement to it, and police has not come out to talk whether these graves are also connected to him. But one thing you should understand about Ezekiel is that he's actually such a force that his church seats about 40,000 people, and he sells what you would like to call a holy cloth. That he says actually heals sickness. Now, some of those things are of interest, especially to police after people were convinced to starve to death that they will meet Jesus Christ or go to heaven. And when you look at some of the things that are the way they have been conducting their business, there are quite some similarities that the police could pick out, and that's how they launched that investigation to get Odero in. So I know that by today there will be some progress. If actually the deaths that the bodies that are or graves that are found near his church are actually connected to him and not Ezekiel. So they have not linked the two. At least as of police, they have not yet linked whether the two cult leaders are connected to the death of all these people that are working together. But just to remind you of what happened in Kenya is gruesome, and it's still the police is still searching for more bodies in case. There are so many testimonies that have come out from the people. One Mwiti, one of the men who lost the wife, up to now he hasn't seen them, and the 6 children he believes that they went to live with him. In fact, he actually says that Mackenzie convinced the wife to leave his job and leave his marriage. Leave her marriage and go with the children, went into a forest of Sapkahola, where they were living for about 5 months. It's impenetrable. You couldn't get into there. They tried as locals to get into that forest to rescue these people, but it seemed they were very convinced of what they were doing, and they failed to rescue them. So in all the bodies that have been recovered, his wife is missing, his children are missing. So that means there could be more bodies out there than the 100 that so far have been recovered. Now, this is not a new thing in East Africa. In 1999, actually, what happened in the western part of Uganda, there's a gentleman called Joseph Kiwetere, who was leading a cult, and he burnt down a church with all the followers who were about 1,000 people in that church. He convinced them still the same thing, that you have to sell all your property, you can't go to heaven when you're rich, it's difficult. In fact, they used that Bible verse in the Bible that says it's difficult for a rich man to go to heaven. Just the same way it will be hard for a camel to go through an eye of a needle. And people sold their property, entered church, put fuel, and burnt them to death. Himself, he disappeared. He wasn't there. He later on died in a different country and not in East Africa. And the same thing again happened, not death this time, but in the eastern part of Uganda, in a district called Kumi. There are some cults who convinced people to also sell their property, land, and all these things, and they said they're going to Ethiopia, and Ethiopia will be their journey to heaven. Since then, they only found a few people, but the rest have disappeared till today. So it seems like it's now on a rise after what we've seen in Kenya. So sad.
I can't even call this sad anymore. I think there's other words that have to be used to describe this.
It's gruesome.
I understand the whole idea of religious indoctrination and extremism and whatnot, but I have never imagined it on this level, and I don't know what a religious leader, a pastor, Mommy Gio, Daddy Gio will tell this many people that will convince them to leave their families, go into a forest and stay there without food until they die. It's mind-blowing. And I would like to really understand what Paul Mackenzie will be charged with eventually, or any other person who's linked to it.
What is very interesting is that, and this is my opinion, I've come to discover that religion is the easiest tool to manipulate people. So it's good and dangerous. Good in a sense that it's very comforting, it gives people hope and all these kind of things, but it's dangerous that it can be used, to manipulate people and, kill them. I mean, if you start to quote the Bible and get verses such as, it's difficult for you to go to heaven when you're rich, and it's in the Bible, it's written there, but the context has changed here, and you see it differently. You're going to sell off your property. Some of them have sold property and given it to their pastors, and they become poor while the pastors become rich. Interesting, and they'll tell you, why would you wait for the beast to come, label you 666 and all these things? Why not die now while you pray and fast like Jesus prayed and fasted for 40 days before his death? Now that gets them and think, okay, I think fasting is such a good thing. The guy fasts to death. I'm sure you heard about the pastor in Zimbabwe who was trying to fast like Jesus.
Yeah, and then he changed his mind.
That's it.
Quickly, if you can, squeeze it into 30 seconds or a minute max. Quickly share your thoughts on Russia, the ICC, and Cyril Ramaphosa.
I would like to say, generally, I'm going to speak about the ICC and how Africa works. You find that so many African countries have been, they signed all their signatories to the ICC, which was again put with the intention of, getting international criminals and put them to justice. But the questions have always come up of, it causes diplomatic conflict, especially if you put things together, like, say, Russia diplomats going to South Africa. You've seen Bashir going to South Africa, and there was an attempt to arrest him, and he escaped, went back to Sudan. We have seen the former president of Kenya, Uhuru, and his other 6 officials, including the current president of Kenya, Ruto, being called to ICC for the crimes that were committed. And in fact, Kenya came out and voted against, to withdraw from ICC. And this is the direction that I think that, in my view, that South Africa may take, because you find that countries like Russia and Africa have had a relationship where they've been supplying things like wheat, army trainings or army equipment, and other things like oil. Now, for you to go against their leader, or if a leader comes into a country where you're enjoying already nice diplomatic relations and you arrest an international leader on your soil, it becomes a problem. And this is why these African countries have also been staying away from voting in the UN again, on making a decision on issues to do with Ukraine and Russia. Was ICC actually meant for a good reason? That is a question that we always ask ourselves in international relations, and we say yes. But why are countries that are some superpower countries that have also most probably committed such crimes are not signatories to the ICC? I mean, we've gone against things like Tony Blair and Bush Jr., the crimes they committed in Iraq, and never even found the nuclear weapons that they alleged they were there. People died. You can see the situation in Afghanistan and all things, but these people are never brought to book because they are not signatories for the ICC. And this is what inspires most African leaders to think this was not meant, whereas it was meant for a good cause, it's not actually also stretching its hands to where it should touch in other places. And also Africa, starting from the 1950s to now, Africa was going through a situation, a revolution of finding itself and creating its own leadership and democratic processes. So that's how you find wars, like the wars in Angola, where Savimbi led the war there. Of course, so many people died. Wars in Congo, genocides in Rwanda, and bringing the load of the ICC now, when African countries were just trying to find themselves, looked like it was a trap.
Well, nice way you broke it down, but I'm sure that as we proceed and get to here, maybe, just maybe, there might be another U-turn. We never know, but we do understand that it's because of BRICS and a lot that has surrounded that U-turn, in my own perception. But then again, time will fail us if we really want to dig deep into why the South Africa president has backtracked on his statement. Thank you so much, Daron, for joining us. We did really enjoy having you, and of course Tobago, always on Friday, breaking down what's going on in these parts of the continent.
Have a lovely day.
All right, you too.